You know that you have all this potential deep inside of you, but for whatever reason, you just can't seem to get it out. What I've heard a lot of times is, have you ever had a goal or known what to do? You're willing to do it. You're willing to put the work in, but maybe you've even started doing the work, but it still doesn't happen. You still don't get the result that you want. Or maybe, out there, other people, they're saying, hey, to them on a level 1 to 10, with 10 being, hey, you're crushing it, they might think you're at a 10. But if you're really honest with yourself, you might really feel internally more like a 5, 6, or 7. Or maybe like you have all of this potential deep inside of you, and there's this version of you who's the real you, but you just don't know how to let it out. And what a lot of guys tell me is they say, I've been to all the seminars, I read all the books, I'm doing the best I can as a man, but I have all the information, but there's really not that inner transformation. Like I'm the smartest guy in the room when it comes to this stuff, but when it comes to actually applying it, it's like I'm 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or I got, 1 foot on the gas, 1 foot on the brake simultaneously, or I'll make progress for a while and then I'll self-sabotage. And it's kind of like a never-ending cycle. Is this resonating with anybody? And what I hear a lot of times from men is their biggest fear, they say like your biggest fear is like you're not going to be enough, you won't be loved. What I've found is with men, their biggest fear is they're afraid they're not going to reach their full potential. And so if that's you, if that resonates with you, let me know. And if that's you, you're not alone. I was a very similar way. But so what do we want instead? What are we here to accomplish? What is it that we want to do instead? What do we want to grow into? Well, imagine for a moment what it would be like if it wasn't just potential that you knew that you had, but what if you lived that potential every single day? What if the version of you that you knew you were capable of was who you showed up as every single day? What if you were the type of guy that took command of your life and you got results in every single area of your life, your health, your relationships, your career, everything, right? And what if you were the ideal version of you, but the truth is, the ideal version of you is just the most authentic version of you, just without all the conditioning and the layers of BS that you've been told you have to be through years and years and years of conditioning. Does that make sense? A lot of people say they want to be, a quote unquote, a high value man. To me, that just means a man that has self mastery. But to me, the best definition of a man that has self mastery is it's a man who is in command of the result and direction of his own life, not just externally, but internally. Because, some of the most successful people in the world know that it's not the external world, right? The external world matters, but the external world is really a mirror of the internal world, isn't it? So if we want self-mastery, what we first want to do is we want to master the inner game. Well, the only question is, how do we get there? How do we do that? And well, first of all, I'll tell you what it's not. I don't believe you get there by banging your head against the wall more. I did that for years, and I'm sure many of you have as well. We're men. We like to fix things. We like to, hit things head on. We look for strategies. We look for tools. We like to fix it, right? The only problem is we've been banging our head against the wall, for years. It hasn't gotten us the result all the time, right? What I actually believe is we have to solve the real problem. What I believe you have to do is we have to take control of this by taking control of our unconscious mind, taking control of our inner world, and getting into total alignment. Okay. Now, what do I mean by that? What do I mean by take control of your unconscious mind? What do I mean by getting into inner alignment, total alignment? Well, let's talk about self-sabotage for a moment. Self-sabotage, anytime we self-sabotage, what I really mean by that is consciously we want one thing, but then unconsciously we want another thing, right? Our internal world is trying to protect us, but our external world, we're trying to go for it, right? So anytime there's the result that we're after, there's the outcome that we're going for, but then our results don't match, or we start to make progress or self-sabotage, that's because there's something called an internal conflict, okay? And we're going to talk about what these internal conflicts are more in a moment. But this is what I told you about before. The most successful people in the world know that the external world is really just a reflection of the internal world. So we don't want to keep banging our head against the wall, do we? We don't want to just put a Band-Aid on the problem. That's what a lot of people out there try to do, is they try to fix the symptom, right? There's a symptom, there's a problem, they try to fix it with a strategy, but there's really a root cause going on. So what I want you to do today, if nothing else, what I want you to do is make a real commitment to solving the root cause of the problem. What I want you to do today is really make a commitment to not just put band-aids on on a quick solution anymore, but really to take control of the things that matter and take control of your unconscious mind. Does that make sense? Who here is committed to taking control of the root cause of the problem, not just putting band-aids anymore? If you're committed to that, go ahead and type yes in the chat. If you're committed to solving the root cause of the problem, not just a symptom. Awesome. So how do we do that? We got to commit to solving the root cause of the problem, not just the symptom. And we do that by getting into total inner alignment. Now, what do I mean by getting into alignment? Well, instead of pushing and forcing and trying to get things to happen through pure force of will, remember I told you that an inner conflict is when your conscious mind and your unconscious mind, they're going two separate ways. Well, imagine what would happen if your unconscious mind and your conscious mind work towards the same outcome. And when you're in alignment, results start to happen so much more easily and automatically. And that's what we want to do. What do I mean by the unconscious mind? Now, most of you right now, like what you might not be aware of is a lot of who you are right now is because of the unconscious mind. It's autopilot. Between 0 and 7 and 7 to 14, studies show most of who you are gets kind of downloaded into you. That's when, you basically become who you surrounded yourself with as a child, your parents, your teachers, what you see on TV, your friends, and it just kind of comes into you by osmosis. And all of a sudden, you haven't even really consciously chosen it. By the time you're an adult, you're just kind of like a grab bag of all these different things that you picked up along the way. And it might not even have been what you consciously would have chosen. Does that make sense? Now, let me ask you, would you let a 7-year-old dictate and control your life and your decisions on what you do? No, it's absolutely ridiculous, isn't it? But that's what so many of us do all the time. We're still reacting as if we were, 5, 6, 7, or we're still having these unconscious responses. And so consciously we want one thing, but unconsciously our brain is doing an entirely different thing. That's the internal conflict. Now, have you ever heard of a philosopher called Carl Jung? There's a philosopher called Carl Jung, and this is why this is so important. He says, until you make the unconscious conscious, it's going to control your life and you're going to call it fate. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it's going to control your life and you're going to call it fate. And you might be asking, why is it so important for us to take care of this now? Well, let me ask you, how much has living on autopilot potentially already cost you? What are the opportunities that you might have already missed out on because of your unconscious autopilot, because of these internal conflicts? What have you missed out on? What have you not stepped into? What potential have you not lived up to already because of these unconscious or autopilot responses, right? So in this seminar, we're going to actually uncover what the root cause is of a lot of these internal conflicts. You're going to see it right down there on the paper, what's been holding you back all this time. And it's going to be right there on the paper in clear English, and you're going to get a breakthrough, or you're going to have an awareness of this for the first time. And before we do that, is it okay for a moment if I share with you how I came to understand this and why this is so important to me? All right, so I'm going to just share with you my story real quick. So I discovered this. I really believe this is important because about 5 years ago, it's 2018, and I had on paper everything that you would think that you would want. I had a business that I loved to do. It was like a hobby of mine, but it became a business. I started to be doing well financially for the first time in my life. I was married to my college sweetheart. I had a great place to live. Things were good on paper. I was a success. Remember when I told you, like out there, people think you're at a level 10, but internally, you might not be doing exactly what you know that you're capable of. That's what was going on with me. Even though everything on paper seemed great, I knew deep down the worst. It wasn't anything externally was necessarily bad. What was going on was internally, I knew I was made for so much more. Because the truth was, in my relationship, we had a lot of love, but there wasn't very much passion. We were like best buddies and we were hanging out, but there wasn't a lot of passion. And there were some issues starting to show. And my business, right? I had used to work minimum wage. I had finally got the courage to create this business. I was doing well for the first time financially ever, and my money's starting to stack up, and I'm so happy. But I was more afraid of my business failing than I was of being a success. Does that make sense? Have you ever, you finally get something going and then all of a sudden you're more afraid to lose it than you are to build it up? That was happening to me. So my relationship has love, but not a lot of passion. My business is stressful, not because it's doing bad, but I'm afraid I'm going to lose it, right? And Not only that, but I had got married and I used to be an athlete. And once you get married, you know how you kind of relax a little bit. I had started to not really quite as much be in shape like I used to be. I started to gain a few pounds, right? And so I knew I had all this potential, but I was not living it fully. And I knew I was letting myself slip a little bit. And I wasn't happy with that. Now, luckily, I had a couple of really good beliefs that I had installed in me just from a young age. Number one was I never blamed anybody, right? Like I never blamed anybody for my problems except me, right? I always took personal responsibility, and even more than that, I always, I always found value in personal development and investing in myself. So I started to make some money and I started to reinvest the money that I made into personal development, into skills, into seminars, into reading these different books. Because I'm like, my life, everybody else might think I'm a 10. To me, I'm like a 5, 6, or 7. I want to improve this. And by the way, I'm a man, right? What do we like to do as men? We like to fix things. Who here is like me and you're a man, you like to fix things? Just comment yes if that's you in the chat. So yeah, I'm like, I'm going to solve this problem. Now, what do I logically think as a man that I got to do? Okay, cool. My life isn't where it needs to be. I need to get more knowledge. I need to go, get more research. I need to read more books. I need to learn more skills. I need to understand the psychology behind things. And I started to go to all these seminars, read all these books, and I had a lot of really great knowledge. Now, do you think that made my life better, worse, stayed the same? That was great. I learned a lot of really great things, but did it get me results? That's the question. It didn't actually get me any results. Things kind of stayed the same and they even got a little bit worse, right? I became the smartest guy in the room, right? But it didn't do any good because I wasn't applying the knowledge. And so I go, you know what? Maybe it's I have all this knowledge. Maybe I have to take more, I have to apply the knowledge, right? So I have all this knowledge. Now I got to apply it. So I should probably take action. So now I thought the solution was I got to take more action. I got to work harder, right? I got to, go to the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning. I need to work 80, 90 hours a week, all that stuff. And I'm exaggerating, right? And the action did start to work a little bit. But I don't know if you ever experienced this. Have you ever taken the right action? It starts to work a little bit, and then your foot comes off the gas and your motivation kind of dies down. Or it's like Groundhog's Day. You keep having to motivate yourself to take the action. It doesn't come naturally. It's like you're pushing yourself. It's like you're pushing a boulder up the hill sometimes, right? It takes a lot of momentum for you to get going. And that's what was happening to me. So first I had all the knowledge, but the knowledge wasn't enough. And then I started to take action, but taking the action took a lot of momentum and I wasn't always living it every single day. And I started to slip a little bit. Now, there was some periods of time, like there were some categories that my life was getting better. So for example, taking massive action in my business, I started to accumulate some money, like more money than I had previously. And I had kind of future forecasted. If things keep going the way they're going for me now, in a few years, I'm going to have this number that was my goal number, where if I hit that, I was set. And I was so excited for it. And I remember one day I went home to tell my wife about it at the time, and I was so excited. I'm like, oh my God, if the way things are going, we're going to be set in just a few years, because I had a plan, right? And I told her, and her eyes were glazed over. And you ever have the experience where someone's in the room with you, but they're not there? That was the experience that I had. And so my wife at the time, she was battling with issues with addiction, and they were getting worse and worse and worse. And that had to do, even with just stuff that happened in her childhood. And so her addiction got worse and worse and worse. And I was only happy for my success for maybe 5 minutes. And so imagine how I must have felt, right? I had done everything I thought a man should do. I, I'm married to my high school, my college sweetheart. I built this business. I'm about to be financially successful. And I don't even have, the full love and presence of my wife. And that's when I realized that all the success in the world doesn't mean anything if you don't have fulfillment, if you don't really have what's truly important. And I remember that really took a toll on me. And I was such a pleaser at the time, right? I had quote unquote nice guy syndrome. I would do what any decent man would want to do. Like I wanted to save my wife, but she was going in and out of rehab and things were getting worse and they were progressing worse. And that took a toll on me. Does that make sense? And so things started to get worse for me because I had just so much stress going on in my life at that time. My business started to show signs of some stress. My biggest client started getting behind on payments, and he's getting a little bit more behind on me, getting a little bit more behind on payments. Pretty soon, that client goes out of business. Now I'm on the hook for massive debt. Okay. My relationship with my wife, she's going in rehab, out of rehab. She's sober. It's getting really, really bad. I'm stress eating like crazy. My health is plummeting. At my worst, I was 80 pounds overweight. And then so finally what I did is I finally said the solution's got to be, if I know all the skills, I got all the knowledge, I'm trying to take the right actions. It's got to be my environment, right? This is a toxic environment for me to be in. I know better than this. I got to change my environment. And so I got divorced. And so I got divorced. And I think, what do you think that's going to do? I think that's going to solve my problem, right? Because I thought if I got more information, I got more knowledge, I changed my habits, I changed my routines, right? Now I'm going to change my environment and my circumstances. Things should be good for me, right? It still didn't work. Things actually got worse. Do you think things got better, stayed the same, got worse? So I already gave you the spoiler alert. Things got worse. And what was even more frustrating was I couldn't figure it out. I knew the skills. I read all the personal development stuff. I read all the books. I understood it. I had intellectual knowledge of it. I was doing my best to take the action. I did the hardest thing I thought I could ever do, which was leave a relationship, right? And I thought that just by changing the environment, it was going to change everything. But have you ever had the experience, maybe you've had experience like this, where you change a circumstance or you change your relationship and you end up in the same circumstance, but with different people? And it drove me nuts because I thought I knew better and I still couldn't find fulfillment. And it was really, really driving me insane. And then I realized it's like, well, wherever you go with you. Wherever you go with you, right? It has nothing to do with the external circumstances. What it had everything to do with was the internal circumstance. And what really made me see this was some time had gone by. I had been in a new relationship, and I thought just by virtue of me being all into personal development, trying to grow myself, trying my best to take actions, right? Changing the environment. I thought that was going to be enough. But what I hadn't done is I hadn't come face to face with all of the internal conflicts that even got me in that situation in the first place. Does that make sense? And so when I was in the new relationship, suddenly I'm face to face with all of my inner conflicts, all of my inner demons, all the stuff that I had not even known to take a look at because they had been so ingrained in me. Plus, I was so focused on the problems in my relationship that I never even knew to take a look at these things. Does that make sense? And so things got worse. And so what I finally came to, it was like 3 a.m. one night, and I was about to lose the new relationship too. And I kind of hit my rock bottom. It's like I hit threshold where it's like something's got to change. It's got to change right now. I'm not going to blame anybody. Like I said, I had some really good beliefs that I never actually blamed anybody. I go, hey, it's not my fault, but it is my responsibility to fix this. So if I got to fix this, I got to figure out what the root cause of this is so I don't do this again. If, my last relationship failed, this relationship's about to fail. If I keep doing this, I'm going to keep losing businesses. I'm going to keep losing relationships. Like I want to solve this for me, not for anybody out there. Do you guys follow me on this? So I finally realized that, and I sat down and I put this down on paper and I realized every result that I had in my life stemmed from one of my actions, good or bad, right? It's not my fault, but it's my responsibility. Every result stemmed from one of my actions, whether I intended to or not. And by the way, an action can be also what you failed to do, fail to set the boundary, fail to act, fail to say, hey, no more, fail to end a relationship, right? So it's not just what you do, it's what you fail to do. But then every action or lack of action came from one of my beliefs. And more importantly, a belief about myself and my identity, who I believed I was. And every belief about myself came from where? That it just didn't land there. Every belief about myself came from my past conditioning. And my conditioning was all where? It was all in my unconscious. It was all the stuff that got downloaded into me between 0 and 7 and 7 to 14. And I started to realize what the game really was. And I told you this already. The challenge was wherever I went with me. I got to change me. I got to change my conditioning. Right. And I had done all the belief work stuff before. I knew, I had done all the personal development work, but this to me felt different than that. This was deeper than that. And that one night, 3 a.m., I remember I was in a spare bedroom and I was journaling this out because I finally, like I said, I hit threshold and I figured out the solution. And would it be okay with you to share with you the solution that I found to this problem? And guys, I put so much time and effort and energy into this. It took me years to figure this out. And a lot of people in personal development won't tell you this, not because they don't mean well, it's because they don't know. They're helping you with belief change, or they're helping you with strategies, or they're trying to give you, hey, here's the three-step process to eliminate your limiting beliefs, or they're trying to give you like the system or the process, something like that, but they're not getting to the root cause. And it's not their fault. It's just they don't know any better. I had to spend years trying to figure this out, but you guys need this because if you don't have this, like, and hopefully none of you are at my worst, where I was at my worst. I want to help you get ahead of this before it gets to that point, right? Maybe you were where I was at when things were good, but they weren't great, right? That's when you want to start solving this thing. You want to, like they say, kill the monster while it's little, right? So here's what the solution is, and this is what really started to turn it around for me. The solution is don't work harder. You got to start to work higher. The solution is don't work harder. You have to start to work higher. Now, what do I mean by don't work harder, work higher? In a moment, I'm going to share with you a framework, right, that I came up with, and I came up with this that night. And as I go through this framework, I want you to find yourself in the framework. I want you to see and notice maybe what's been holding you back right now. Notice maybe where one or two of your biggest challenges have been, maybe where you've been out of alignment, and start to see or start to become aware of what might be holding you back, right? And so in order for us to get to the point of figuring out your internal conflicts, I have to give you a little bit of information about where all these things come from. Does that make sense? So as I go through this model, start to find yourself and start to see what might be holding you back. Does that make sense? So here we go. I call this the 7 levels of self-mastery. And so this is what I mean. You can have a conflict with your internal alignment. And so your internal alignment is this right here. Every human being has these as like their basic structure. Okay. They just have them, the way that they define them is slightly different. And the way that, and I'll explain, right? So basically, you have on the top here, number one is your mission and your higher purpose. That's your mission and your higher purpose. The number two is you have your identity, which is who you believe you are. Do you guys follow me on this? Then you have worldview, which is what people would call your mindset. Also, your beliefs. I'll get there in a moment. So you have your mission, you have your identity, you have your worldview and your mindset. Underneath that, you have your dominant energy, or also your emotions, like your emotional state, or the state that you show up in every day. So that's how you show up. That's your physical energy. That's your masculine, feminine energy. That's your emotions that you show up as every day. That's your state, how you show up to the world. Make sense? And then so underneath that, you have your skills, resources, and knowledge, which is your resources. Also, it's what you believe you have access to: time, money, things like that, resourcefulness. And then number six is your habits, actions, and behaviors. So this is what you do. And then finally, number seven is your environment and your conditioning. Number seven is your environment and your conditioning. All seven of these play with each other. They all interrelate. What tends to happen though is the higher ones, if you're able to take control of the higher ones have more influence over the lower ones, right? But what most people do is they live their life not from the top down, but from the bottom up. Most people, and see yourself in this, most people they allow their environment when they were growing up, or their environment they're living in now, or their conditioning from the past to determine what they do, their habits, their actions, their behaviors. And then they allow their environment or their conditioning or their habits and actions to affect what they believe they can do, or what they believe they have access to, or their skill level or their knowledge. And then they're held back because of the trapped emotions that they got when they were younger, right? So their conditioning affects their emotions, which affects what they believe about themselves, their mindset, and they believe that who they are is just a product of their conditioning. You follow me? You follow me on this? And so at that point, because you're being held back so much from the lower end of the spectrum, it's very, very difficult to actually reach your mission or your purpose, if you even have one at that point. And so here's actually a major challenge. What a lot of people do, see that line right there between 4 and 5? That's the danger line. And the reason why that's the danger line is take a look at this. What did I explain to you before? What most people do when they try to make a shift is they focus strictly on the bottom three. They try to change, they try to get more skills, resources, or knowledge. So conscious learning, right? They try to get more, I'm going to read more books. I'm going to go to this seminar. I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to learn the skills, right? I'm going to learn the business system. And then it doesn't work. They make some progress, but then they start to fall off a little bit. They go, I need to double down. I have to actually, take action on this. It's not enough to just know it. I need to install more habits. And they'll like a New Year's resolution. And they'll go really deep on a New Year's resolution. They'll get all fired up and then they'll burn out because they take all this action, then their motivation dies down. It's not sustainable long term. Well, why does that happen? It's because now they're going in a perpetual loop. And then so they're trying to, force more actions, force more behaviors, trying to cram more skills. It's all about personal development and personal growth, action skills, action skills, action skills. Finally, they burn out and they go, none of this stuff works. It must be my environment. It must be the group that I'm involved in. It must be the relationship that I'm in. It must be my partner. It's a blame game, right? It must be my work. I got to change careers. I'm not fulfilled here. So then they change career because they're cycling 5 and 6 repeatedly, and they go, it can't be any of that. I tried everything. Let me go change my environment. And so they change environments. But it's what happened with me. I changed relationships and it didn't make anything better. Why? Because wherever you go with you. They're focusing on the bottom three. They haven't actually focused on the top four, which is where all of the change would be made. Who here follows? If you follow, comment yes in the chat if this is starting to make sense. Okay. And so your mission, that's, what you're made to do in the world. Your identity is who you believe you are. Your mindset, your worldview, that's your beliefs. That's, what you believe about life, your dominant energy and emotions. That could be, happiness, joy, fulfillment. That could also be trapped negative emotions like anger, sadness, fear, guilt, shame. I don't want to fear of failure, things like that. So start to look down this list here. Where are you potentially strongest right now? And where might you have some potential challenges? Where might you be out of alignment? Do you not fully step into your identity as a high value man with self-mastery? Do you not fully step into who you really are, your potential? Do you have some beliefs that are holding you back? Maybe do you have some trapped emotions or low energy, or maybe you're not showing up every day the way that you're supposed to? Maybe there's a lack of skills or resources or knowledge, or maybe you're trying to tell yourself a story like there's not enough money or time. Like I don't have the right resources, right? You're telling yourself that story. Or maybe you're not doing the right habits or actions. Maybe you're procrastinating. Or maybe you feel like, hey, it's my past. I'm held back by my past. I'm held back by my conditioning. My environment's a challenge. Take a look at this and where might you be out of alignment? And just comment in the chat what you're beginning to notice, what you're beginning to realize here. And how might this have already been holding you back in life? And I don't want to sound negative, but if the misalignment were to continue, what would that potentially hold you back from long term? And just comment that in the chat. And so we're gonna zone in on some of this here today to help you actually find the root cause of your internal conflicts and what's going on. We're going to do that workshop here in a little bit. Now, what most people say though is they say what? They go, just fix your mindset. You just got to fix your mindset. You ever hear that before? Fix your mindset used to drive me nuts because it's what everybody would say. It was like a catch-all buzzword. Just fix your mindset, fix your mindset. Finally, I'm like, what does that even mean? I got so frustrated with that term because it just became what everybody said. But if you take a look here at this list, right, the reason why just fixing your mindset doesn't work is because you've got 6 other levels that could be out of alignment. Does that make sense? And by the way, if you have your mindset taken care of, but your identity, you don't actually believe you're the person that can achieve your outcome, the higher ones on the list have more influence over the lower when you get there. So if you don't believe you're the type of person that can do it, all the belief change in the world won't actually help. Or if you're still being held back by your conditioning, you'll try to cut down the tree of those beliefs and they're going to grow back like weeds. So we got to make sure that we're holistic in this model. So like I said, most people say fix your mindset, but mindset's just one piece. The reason why it doesn't make sense when people say that sometimes is because they're not defining specifically what mindset is. So, in order for us to help get you to the root cause of your internal conflicts, we got to define what mindset is. Now, what mindset is, there's four components of mindset. Number one is what you're most aware of. And what you're most aware of is your attitudes. Your attitudes, that's what you're very conscious of day to day. You're pretty aware of your general attitudes, aren't you? Like, hey, I'm in a good mood, I'm in a bad mood, I'm feeling kind of frustrated. Your general demeanor and attitude, that's relatively conscious. You're very aware of that. Now, the next level is your beliefs. That's still conscious, but it's not quite as conscious as your attitudes. If I ask you, hey, what are some of your beliefs about life? What's your beliefs about relationships? You'd be able to tell me. You might not be able to tell me in gigantic, great detail, but you're pretty much able to tell me, hey, I'm being held back because of XYZ limiting belief, or you understand that. A lot of us have understand we have limiting beliefs and are trying to change them, right? So that's relatively conscious. Now, there's one level even lower than beliefs, which is less, it's still, you can still access it consciously, but it's a little bit less conscious, and that's your values. And what values are what's most important to you in a specific category. So it's what's most important to you in life. It could be what's most important to you in career. It could be what's most important to you in relationships. Now, this is less conscious than beliefs. You're going to have an easier time telling me what your beliefs are. If I go, hey, what's your top 10 values in the area of career and relationship? You're like, wait, what are you talking about? You'd be able to give me a few, and you'll be able to get the list if I actually ask you and prompt you. But it's not easily available just off the top of your head. You have to put a little bit of thought into it. Does that make sense? But so values are the deepest level of your unconscious mind that you can still talk about. Underneath values, so mindset, there's something called prime concerns or prime directives. Have you ever, this is like the operating system behind what's going on in the background. So you have your computer screen you're looking at, or maybe you're looking at your phone. You see the monitor, you see the desktop, right? But underneath the desktop, there's all the ones and zeros and the coding. Prime concerns is kind of like that. Have you ever had a situation where you're trying to word a feeling to somebody like, oh my God, I feel kind of like, I'm like frustrated, but it's also this, and you're trying to word it, but you can't really put words to it. That's a prime concern. That's driving your behavior, right? So there's a very specific process that we have to use to get that. But so for the purposes here, what's going to be really most valuable is to help us to figure out what your values are, because that's the deepest level of programming in your unconscious that we can still talk about. And so if you try to change your attitudes or try to change your beliefs consciously, you might be able to consciously do it, but a lot of times they're going to grow back because your beliefs are tied to your values. Does that make sense? So if we want to shift the beliefs, a lot of times we don't want to attack the beliefs straight away. We want to go one level deeper to the values and pick up the root. You guys get that? So I'm just giving you a little bit of coming attractions here. We're going to do some work with values in a moment, so just stand by. Now, I want to explain to you, now that we know what the four levels of mindset are, what is an internal conflict specifically? Well, for our purposes, I've identified three types of internal conflicts. One type of internal conflict is called a parts conflict. So take a look there at the left. You see how parts conflict is in blue, and I have identity in blue. Parts conflict is, in other words, it's an identity conflict. And here's what this might look like or sound like. It's when you say a part of me knows that I'm made for more, but there's a part of me holding myself back. A part of me knows that I should go to the gym, but a part of me feels lazy. A part of me knows that I'm destined to be a success, but there's a part of me that I'm embarrassed and I feel like a failure. So what it's an internal tug of war. It's an internal conflict, and it makes it very difficult for you to make progress. Does that make sense? So that's a parts conflict. That's at the identity level. We're going to be talking about a conflict in your mindset. And specifically for our purposes, we're going to be talking about a values conflict, which, remember I said a value is what you value most highly, what's most important to you in a specific area. So a values conflict is when you value two things very highly, but in the same category. So I value love and relationships, but I also value freedom. Can you see how that would create a conflict in a relationship? Or I value success and financial rewards and being great as an entrepreneur, and I also value being a family man. Can you see how that might create a conflict, right? Like, so on one hand, we're going for the career success, but on the other hand, we really value family. That's going to create a tug of war, right? It's like it's competing interests. So what do? It's not that it's a bad, they're both good values, but they're both competing for your attention. And that creates a conflict. Make sense? We got to figure out how to resolve those. And the third level of internal conflict is called a motivation conflict. Now, a motivation conflict, have you ever had, maybe you start an exercise program or a diet program and you lose the first 5, 10 pounds and you feel great. And then you just stop and you gain a couple pounds back or you get worse. This is a motivation conflict. There is, in anything that you value highly, there's what you're moving towards motivation wise, and there's what you're moving away from. So, what you're moving away from is what you're trying to avoid. If you're moving towards health because you value health, vitality, being in the best shape, pushing yourself, that's a positive motivation, right? But many people have moving away from motivation, which is I value health because I don't want to be sick, I don't want to be fat, I don't want to be overweight, I don't want people to make fun of me, I don't want to feel this way, right? So it's an avoidance. And so anytime your motivation is trying to avoid something, what's going to happen is you'll do just enough to get out of the fire. And then once you feel like the fire is far enough away, you stop. And the only thing that's going to motivate you again is if the fire starts to creep up on you again. Does that make sense? So we got parts conflict, we got values conflict, and we got motivation conflict. What we're going to do today is we're going to find out where your specific internal conflicts are. So get ready to pull out a paper and pad, and we're going to start doing this. Now, this is an exercise that I do all the time. Whenever I'm working with somebody one-on-one, we'll go deep. Like I want to do like a deep dive into like what's holding them back, why are they stuck, what's going on, what area of life do they need the most help in. This exercise that I do, I always do this with people. I always find their values because here's the thing: you don't always get what you want. You always get your values, unconsciously or not. You always get your values. So I always want to find out what's going on in the values that might be holding them back and what's causing the internal conflict. And then the rest of our time that we work together, this is like a diagnostic tool. And then once I understand that, then we can start to fix everything and start to get what they want. So we're going to do that here together today. Now, what specifically is a value? I gave you a little bit of information about this, but I just want to, because I want to make sure you get the most out of this. I want to give you the content that you need to get the most out of this. Now, your values are your deepest layer of unconscious programming that you can still consciously talk about. I told you before, there's something called prime concerns. That's really deep. That's like, it's like impulses that you can't even put into words. There's another way to get rid of that, which I do with people. But this is what we can actually talk about on this seminar here, on this workshop that we can talk about. So your values are the deepest level of unconscious programming that you can still talk about consciously. So what that means is your values are very good at finding internal conflicts. Your values are formed by your unconscious conditioning, right? So your values are showing you your autopilot. Like I said, this is like opening up your computer BIOS and seeing what's going on underneath the hood and finding out where all the viruses are. Anytime someone's not getting the results that they want, anytime here's where they want to go, and then here's what they're actually getting, right? Like that arrow there on the screen. 9 times out of 10, there's a conflict in the values. And so, like I told you a moment ago, whenever I work with people one-on-one, this is always a part of it to find out what the heck is really going on under the hood. And then when they, like I told you, until you make the unconscious conscious going to control your life, you're going to finally see right in front of you what's been holding you back. It makes it conscious for the first time. That's what we're going to do. Now, you have values in any category of life, right? So we want to think about, for the purposes of this workshop, what's an area of your life that you most want to improve? Maybe it's life, maybe it's career, maybe it's relationships, maybe it's your personal health, right? But just so think, it could be life in general, but think of one specific area of life where you would like to start to get more results in, or where you feel held back. And so values, what they do is they control what you do or what you don't do. They determine what's highly important to you in that category. They determine how you spend your time. They determine how you evaluate the time that you've spent, and it also what determines if you consider yourself a success or failure in a particular area. So who here thinks that values are a little bit important to understand? Comment yes in the chat if you're beginning to see why this is important. By the way, if somebody comes to me and they have a career challenge and I get their value, and the career challenge is I'm not making a lot of money, and I get their values, guess what's never on the list? Money's not there. They value, connection, contribution. They value community. They value being of support, helping people, but money's not on the list, right? So when they go, oh my God, that's why I'm not making money. You always get your values. And then the flip side of that is if it's not a value, you don't even see it. Make sense? That's why this is important. So understanding your values is like seeing your unconscious mind right there on paper. And you have values, like I said, in life, health, relationship, career. So think now about a category of life that in this workshop you'd like to improve. And in a moment, we're going to do the exercise. Now, not yet, but in a moment, we're going to do this exercise. I want to explain to you how we're going to do it. What we're going to do, it's a three-step process. Number one is we're going to uncover what your specific values is in an area of your life that you want to get results in or you feel held back by. So we're going to uncover your values in a specific area of life that you feel like you're held back in or you want more results in. And what I'm going to ask you is a very simple question. It's what's most important to you in whatever area of life, in your life, in your career, in your relationship. We're only looking for the top five. When I do this one-on-one with people, it could be 8, 12, 15 sometimes, right? But for the purposes here, we want to keep it nice and easy, nice and tight for the sake of time. Let's just go with the first 5 that come out. So we're going to look for the top 5 values in a specific area. I'm going to ask what's most important to you in life, career, relationship, and just it's like call and response. The first thing that comes out, that's the answer. Don't overthink it. Just let it come out. Make sense? Give me a thumbs up if this is making sense. So, oh, no, I got the fireworks, right? So this is going to be a really great exercise. So number 2, once we get the values, and actually you can see it right here, we want to find out what does that mean to you? So what does that mean to you? If I ask, on this seminar, or if I was in a room full of 2,000 people and I'm like, hey, everybody, what's most important to you in a relationship? 2,000 people might say love, right? But everybody would value love, I would assume. But then if I ask, what does love mean? I'm going to get 2,000 different individual answers, right? So we can't assume that just by the value that we know what they mean. We want to find out for you, what does the value mean? So we're going to figure out what it means, what values, what your top 5 are in a specific area of your life. Then we're going to ask, what does that mean to you and why is that important to you? What does it mean to you and why is that important to you? So it might be, hey, in relationship, I value love. Okay, why, what does love mean to you and why is love important to you? Love is important to me because, I love spending time with loved ones. I cherish being with my family. I want to see my kids grow old, or I want to see my kids grow up healthy and go to college. And it's the world to me, right? So that's one definition. What does love mean to you and why is that most important to you? Love is important to me because my first girlfriend broke up with me and I want to make sure that I'm never alone, right? It's a different definition, isn't it? Right. So we want to find out what it means to you specifically and be honest, right? This is not the time to try to make it sound good. We want to get to the root cause of what's actually going on. And then so once we understand the value, what it means and why it's important, now we want to figure out what the motivation is. And the motivation is it moving towards what you want or is it moving away from what you don't want? So you might have heard that in that first example. We want to find out, are you primarily motivated to reach your value to get something good or to avoid pain or failure? And what you're going to find out is most people that are stuck or in like Groundhog's Day or in a repeating cycle or have internal conflicts, not in every single case, not in every value, but in most of the values, there's going to be a lot of moving away from motivation or there's going to be conflicting moving towards and away from there, right? It's not all going to be congruent. Does that make sense? So we'll do it together. You see what I mean? And then, so number 3, we're going to check for conflicts in the value. So if I say, if the category is career, what's most important to you in career? Number 1 is success. Number 2 is family. Does success conflict with family? The answer might be no, but someone might say yes. So we want to see what's most important to you? What does it mean and why is it important to you? Is the motivation moving towards what you want or mostly away from what you don't want? And are they in conflict with each other? Does that make sense, right? Give me a thumbs up if this is making sense? Okay, so we're going to do it together. Now, just to recap, what we're going to do in a moment, we're going to do the exercise. So go get your Google Doc open, go pull out your paper and pad. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to uncover your top 5 values in a specific area that you want to get results in. Then they might not come out in order. We want to put them in order of most important to least important to you, right? Not what you hope they would be, but what they actually are to you. Then we're going to define what each one means and why they're important. And then we're going to check for inner conflicts. Okay. So here we go. Ready? Get your paper and pad out, pull up your Google Doc, and think of, what category you want, where you want some results in, where you feel held back from. So whether that's life, health, career, relationships, finances, think of a category of life now where you want to start to make some results, and we're going to do the exercise together. So number one, in that category that you're thinking of, life, relationship, career, health, whatever it is, what's most important to you in that category? So go ahead, write down your first answer. Whatever comes to mind, write down your first answer now. What's most important to you in that area? First thing that comes to mind, just don't filter it. Okay. Now, number two, what else is most important to you in that area? So what else is most important to you? What would it be? Just first thing that comes to mind, no overthinking it, just call and response, first thing. Okay, so now think of that area again. What else is most important to you in that area of your life? In life, relationship, career, health, whatever it might be, finances. What else is most important to you in that category? We've got first thing that comes out. And we got two more. Do it one more time. What else is most important to you in that category? And finally, we got number 5. What else is most important to you in that category? So you should have 5. You should have your top 5 answers there now. You don't have to overthink it. Maybe if you don't have 5, that's okay. If you have more than 5, hey, there's way more, that's totally cool. Like I said, when I work with people one-on-one, we might have 8, we might have 12, we might have 15. For the purposes here, you're going to understand what we mean. 5 is plenty. And really, like, your top 5 values is what's driving your results anyway. The other ones have a lot of influence as well, but your top 5 we want to really look out for. Okay. So wherever you're at right now, just finish up. You're doing a great job. And before we go any further, what are you already starting to notice? What's already starting to come up for you? Just comment in the chat. What are you beginning to notice here? Okay. And so now what we're going to do is, maybe you're not aware of it. I told you that we're going to actually reorder them, because sometimes they don't come out in order. They come out how we think of them, but they didn't come out how they actually are ordered, 1 through 5. So what we're going to do is, if you have Google Doc, it's why I told you before, it's going to be really easy for you to do this. Just kind of move them around like an order of importance. If not, just kind of write next to it like the numbers, and then rewrite it on the next page. So I'm going to show you what it looks like. Here's a sample. This is sample career values. So let's say somebody had career as the category. What's most important to them is delivering high quality, growth, family, succeeding, and financial rewards. Okay, that's the top 5 things that are most important. Now, they might not have come out in order. So if I said, okay, what's 1, what's 2, what's 3, what's 4, what's 5, they might actually reorder, right? So he might have family's number 1. And then growth is number 2, and then delivering high quality is number 3, success is number 4, and then financial reward is number 5, right? Can you see how having family at the top versus financial reward at the top would be different? Can you see how delivering high quality versus succeeding, like if success was number 1 and family was at the bottom, that's a lot different than family at the top and financial reward at the bottom, right? So that's why ordering is very important. This determines what your life looks like. This is actually putting your unconscious mind down on paper. And it's actually really cool. You could even trade notes with somebody, and someone could see, like, oh, this is what this person's life might be like. Like, it really gets it accurately. And so start to reorder them. Take another minute or 2, reorder them. And what's starting to come to your mind now? What are you starting to realize? Maybe you've already begun to notice some conflicts, or maybe you're like, oh, wow, this actually is kind of how I run my life, or run my relationships, or run my career. So comment what you're getting from this right now. And so if you have a Google Doc, it's going to be really easy for you to do. Just make a space below and just put it in italics or something like that, and then comment for each one of these. Take a moment for your first one. Let's say, for example, family. What does your first value, we're going to get the definitions now. So what does the first value mean to you, right? Because the first value might mean something different to everybody on this seminar, everybody on this workshop, right? You might all have the same value, but it might mean something different. So to you personally, what does that value mean and why is it important to you? So go ahead, write that down. Take a moment, write it down. And there's no right or wrong answer. And honestly, it's best to just answer truthfully because you're going to be able to see on paper what's going on. And so take another minute to finish up there. And then once you're done, go on to number 2 and then write down, what does your second value mean to you and why is that important to you? What does it mean to you and why is it important to you? And get your criteria. So take another minute or two. And then let's go on to the third one when you have a chance. What does your third value mean to you? And why is that one most important to you? Or why is that one? So what's it mean to you and why is it important to you? And then number 4, what does the fourth value mean to you and why is that important to you? And then finally, number 5, what does the fifth value mean to you and why is that important to you? So do your best, wrap up, whatever comes to your mind, perfect, right? There's no right or wrong way to do this. What you're looking for, you're not looking for accuracy, you're not looking for the perfect answer. What you're looking for is what's coming out of my mouth, like what's coming out unconsciously, because what's coming out on the paper is what's going on unconsciously. So just let it come out, don't filter it. Whatever comes out is the perfect answer. Okay, because now we're going to get optics on this for the first time. Make sense? So give me a thumbs up or a heart if you're ready to go. And if not, this will be posted as a like you can come back and do this again. I just want to make sure that we're able to continue moving forward with this. So here's what it might look like as a sample. So for family, for these sample career values, right? Maybe you did life, maybe you did relationship, maybe you did health, whatever, that's totally fine. Let's imagine for a moment that you chose career. The first value is family. So why is family important to you and what does that mean to you? It means it's important to me. I must always provide for my family. Growing up, my parents didn't provide for us, and it was a big cause of stress for us in the family. Right? So that's number 1. That's what it means. That's why it's important. Number 2, growth. What does growth mean to you? Why is it important? Well, growth, if you're not growing, you're dying, right? Pretty standard. I don't want to stay stagnant, but also if I grow too much, it might take away time from my family. You see, so there's starting to be some criteria there. Number 3, delivering high quality. What does that mean to you and why is that important? I really want to deliver high quality. I feel like I have to do everything perfectly all the time. Like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just what does it represent to that person? Just put it down on paper and see what it is. Succeeding. What does succeeding mean is why, and why is that important? Succeeding is having the growth and high quality delivering while having everything in the family running smoothly. So succeeding is having growth and delivering high quality while still having everything in the family running smoothly. So that's his definition of succeeding, right? And by the way, how likely is all of that, like everything happening smoothly all the time, right? Probably not very likely. So if his definition of success is I have to deliver at a high quality, grow, have everything running smoothly all the time, his ability to feel successful is diminished. Does that make sense? Values determine if you evaluate if you're succeeding or failing, right? And this is the criteria that he's putting. And then so finally, financial reward is I don't want to live my life with any regrets. It's important because I don't want to get to the end of my life and not feel like I did anything meaningful or not live my full potential, right? So here's what I want to show you for a moment. See, family, growth, delivering high quality, succeeding, financial rewards, these all sound great, don't they? They all sound great. And then when you look at the definitions, though, can you begin to notice some of the emotional baggage that's there? Can you begin to notice some of the unconscious beliefs starting to come out? Can you begin to notice some of the unconscious, negative trapped emotions there? Family caused stress, right? So now we know that there's something in his past where family would cause stress for him. And he's filtering his entire life through that, right? If you take a look here, you can actually start to see some of the internal conflicts come out. I'm going to share them with you in a moment. Now, What we want to do here is we want to check your motivation primarily. We want to check your motivation. Is it mostly towards what you want or away from what you don't want? And the way that we do that is we check the definitions that you just listed. Are they mostly worded in the positive? Are they mostly worded in the negative? Are they kind of a combination of both? And also, you know what they mean, right? Are you moving because you want that for the sake of that, or because you're avoiding not having that? You're avoiding failure. You're trying to make up for something, right? You'll be able to tell. So let's take a look here. We're going to use the same examples. Family. I must always, right? So it's like, that means if he doesn't, it's not going to be good, right? So that's a little bit of a moving away from. I must always provide for my family. Growing up, my parents didn't provide, and that was a big cause of stress. So is he moving towards family because he really values family? Yes, he does, but he's also moving towards family because he's moving away from what happened to him as a child. Do you see? So family is a great value, but the motivation is because he's moving away from what it was in the past for him. You see what I mean? Growth. If you're not growing, you're dying. I don't want to feel stagnant, but also if I grow too much, it might take time away from my family. So he values growth because he doesn't want to die. He doesn't want to stay stagnant. And he also doesn't want to take time away from his family. So let me ask you, is there a conflict between family and growth? You see what I mean, right? So already right there, there's a conflict between his top two values in the area of your career. Can you see why already just with the top two, it might create a push-pull. It might create 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or Groundhog's Day. This is so critical. And so delivering high quality, I really want to deliver high quality. I feel like I have to do everything perfectly all the time. So is he moving towards delivering high quality because he values the quality of his work? Partially, but he's also afraid of not doing a bad job. He's also afraid of what happens if he's not perfect. So is it mostly towards? Is it mostly away? Is it kind of 50-50? Does it starting to make sense, right? Well, we told you towards and away. It's like I value my health because I want to be healthy, and then also I don't want to be fat. So it's like right in the middle. It's like a tug of war that creates inconsistent results. You follow so far? Okay. So succeeding. Succeeding is having growth, high quality, delivering while having everything in my family running smoothly. So first of all, success depends on his other top 3 values, which are all mostly moving away from. Make sense? So how likely do you think this gentleman would feel successful on a day-to-day basis? Would it be a lot, a little? Would it be frustrating? Would he always feel like he's trying to be successful, but not really succeeding fully at that, right? A little bit behind. Your values determine everything. This is what's going on underneath the hood. And then so finally, financial reward. I don't want to live my life with any regrets. It's important because I don't want to get to the end of my life and not feel like I did anything meaningful or not live life to my full potential. So financial reward, it's not because he wants to grow and spend quality time with his family and go on cool vacations, set himself up for retirement. It's because he doesn't want to live with regrets. He's moving away from regrets. He's moving away from not living his full potential. So let me ask you, wonderful, like family, growth, delivering high quality, succeeding, financial reward. It's great values, aren't they? I think anybody would love to have those values in terms of like what they mean at the surface level. But if you see what he's making them mean, are you beginning to notice all the conflicts, all of the baggage, all of the beliefs, all of the meanings, all of the past conditioning, all of the fears, right? This is what I mean by you're able to start to see all of the root cause of your internal conflicts right here. So let me ask you, what are you starting to notice is going on with you? What might be holding, what are you starting to notice about you? What's like a little aha moment that you're starting to get? How might you be being held back by this? And take a look at your values right now, evaluate them with how you've defined them, how you've written the definition and why they're important. Are you mostly moving towards? Are you mostly moving away? Or is it a little bit of a mix? And if it's a mix, how has that been holding you back? And how accurate is this to how your challenges or you not getting the results that you want? How accurate is this in determining what's actually happening in your life? Are you beginning to see what's going on here? And so there's one level deeper to this. We want to see, are there any conflicts between the values? We already started to do that. So what you do is you go through each one. Does family have a conflict with growth? Does family have a conflict with delivering high quality? Does family have a conflict with succeeding? So go through yours and ask, do any of these values have a conflict with each other? So, for example, with family and with growth, he said, if I grow too much, it might take away from my family. So, can you see that inside the structure of career, his family and growth are at odds? And that's his top two. That's what he most values highly in the area of your career. So, can you see why that's going to create inconsistent results or a push, pull, or frustration? Makes sense. Does family have a conflict with, or does growth have a conflict with succeeding? Well, yeah, succeeding is having the growth and high quality and delivering while having everything running smooth. So succeeding has a conflict with family and with growth. Because if he succeed, like he can't grow unless he has a conflict with the family, and he can't succeed unless the family's running smoothly. So the whole thing is in conflict. Does that make sense? So take a look at your list right now. And there's no science to this. Just take a look and ask yourself, like with intention, ask yourself, are there any conflicts here? Does my first one have a conflict with my second one? Does my second one have a conflict with my third one? And just see and just draw a line or kind of highlight or put like success versus family, like underneath your Google Doc. Just write out where the conflicts are. And so this right here is why people get stuck. This is why people have two steps forward, one step back. This is why they self-sabotage. This is why they start to be motivated for a while, then the motivation dies down. This is why you get inconsistent results. This is why you feel like there's a version of yourself that you're trying to get to, but you can't, or you got your foot on the gas and the brake simultaneously. It's all delivered right here. You follow me on this? So I'm curious, comment below, what are you beginning to notice? What are you beginning to notice about yourself? What are you beginning to notice about your results? What are you beginning to notice has kept you stuck? And how has this already affected you? So what are you beginning to notice? Can you begin to see how this has kept you stuck? And how has this already affected you? And comment below what would happen if this, and this is already how you've lived your life up to this point, right? This isn't something that you've consciously chosen. It's like I said, it's not your fault. This is just through conditioning and life experience, and things happen and transitions in life. This just gets picked up by osmosis. This happens to everybody, right? But it's almost like I said, computer BIOS. If you don't update your operating system, if we're still running Windows 95, but it's 2024 or whatever time you're watching this, right? Your computer's going to have problems. So we got to update the operating software. But they don't teach you. This is what a lot of personal development doesn't teach you. They teach you just fix your beliefs or fix your mindset or think positive or just here's the 5 strategies, like go out there and do, skills and actions. But they don't teach you this, like all the skills and actions and here's the 5-step process in the world. It's great. But why aren't you already know what to do? Why aren't you doing it? Because you got internal conflicts. If I give somebody the best strategy in the world, but they have these internal conflicts when it comes to success or whatever, are they going to take action on it? No, they'll take action and then not. Inconsistent results. So comment below, what are you beginning to notice? What are you beginning to learn with this? So if there's one thing that I'd like to share with you, what I figured out really is that, so these 7 levels here, like mission, purpose, identity, worldview, energy, skills, habits, environment, your purpose is controlled by your identity, which is who you believe you are. You can't live your purpose if you don't believe you're the person that can actually achieve it. Make sense? So if you have internal conflicts, meaning, there's the version of me that believes I can, there's a version of me that believes I can't, that's an internal identity conflict. So your purpose is controlled by your identity. You have to believe that you're the type of person that can live the purpose. And your identity is controlled by your beliefs. Beliefs about who you are, beliefs about life. And your beliefs going down this chain are controlled by your values. If you try to change your beliefs, but you still have these values and internal conflicts, the beliefs will keep growing back like a weed. So we have to get the root, which is your values. Does that make sense? We have to identify it there. And then your values are there because of all of your stuck emotions. If you can see that, remember I told you before in the values and family, there was stress, right? So if you go through somebody's values, really what you're able to find is all of the trapped emotions, all of the things that happened in childhood, all the past conditioning. So your values are really there because of all of your stuck emotions. And your stuck emotions are all like anger, sadness, fear, guilt, shame, embarrassment, humiliation, stress, all these things, right? Like fear of failure, fear of success. All of your stuck emotions are there because of early events that happened in your conditioning. So what we have to do is, like I said, we don't want to work harder. We want to work higher. And the way that we work higher is actually by, like, if you picture a buoy under the water attached to a chain, we want to cut the chain from the buoy and have the buoy go right up to the surface. So we have to cut this off at the pass, right at the conditioning level. Does that make sense? So, can I share with you the system that I developed that will help you absolutely eliminate all of your conditioning, which is going to get rid of your stuck emotions, switch your values, and be able to help you live your purpose? Would you be up to finding out about the exact system that can help you turn this around? This is what I used that got me out of my situation. I told you I was at rock bottom at one point. I, since doing this process on myself, I've gotten into the best shape of my life since college. I've completely turned around my relationships. My career is back to where I want it to be. Financially, I'm back to where I want it to be. And I can all trace it back to the process I'm about to show you here. And by the way, I just want to share with you, if you want to lose weight, you're still going to have to go to the gym. If you want to make money, you're still going to have to go to work. But everything happened almost effortlessly because once I got rid of all my internal conflicts, the work was no longer difficult. I was no longer fighting against myself. Everything became so much easier, right? And my conscious and my unconscious were aligned, and my results and my expectations lined up, and it became really easy to get results. It became effortless effort. So, would you be open to hearing about the system that you can use to completely eliminate this? Awesome. Well, it's called the breakthrough session. And so, what the breakthrough session is, it's specifically designed to help you eliminate the root cause of all of your conditioning. And what we do is there's a three-step process here. What I help people with is we do a deep dive and we help you eliminate all of the inner conflicts by doing first a detailed personal history. I want to find out the root cause of all of the things holding you back. What happened to you when you were a kid? What are the root cause of things? We want to find out what's holding you back in life. What are some significant events that happened? And then figure out all of your values and then create a game plan and then eliminate it. And then so once we uncover all of the core patterns, we then use coaching processes specifically to release them and then to create your new autopilot. And then what we do after we get rid of all of the internal conflicts, now we can align your purpose and your identity from the top down instead of the bottom up. So once you're free from all the conditioning and you're no longer living on that old autopilot, what we want to do is actually have you create your 7 levels on purpose. So if this is your purpose, who do you have to show up as every day to live that? And if that's who you're going to show up as, what beliefs do you have to have? And what values would you have to have in order to support that? And we go all the way down the list. So we get rid of all the internal conflicts first, then we create what your life is going to be on purpose from the top down. Make sense? And then so finally, what we do is number 3 is we've gotten rid of all of the past. We've installed what you want instead. Now we're going to turn this into your new autopilot by giving you and helping you create custom, a step-by-step roadmap for your own personal success. We're going to give you all the content and strategies to make sure that it lasts. And we're going to give you tons of support to make sure it happens. What a lot of coaches out there do is they're accountability coaches. So they'll say, hey, here's what you got to do. Go out there and try that. It doesn't always work because you're trying to fight through all of the baggage. Does that make sense? So what we do here, we eliminate all of the baggage up front. Then we create who you want to be on purpose. And then from there, now we give you the strategy and we keep you accountable to it because now the change is actually going to last. Does that make sense? This is the fastest, most elegant, most deep way to help somebody transform that I know how. And I absolutely love seeing people transform using this process. You know what they say? They say there's the goal that you have, but it's not so much achieving the goal, it's who you become along the way. And when you get rid of all of the internal conflicts, when you can really become who you're meant to be on the inside, when you're in command of your life, and when you're, that version of you that you can be, that potential, when you're living your potential every single day, that's what it's all about. And I heard a quote, they said, everybody talks about wanting to be the ideal version of themselves. Well, the ideal version of yourself, what is that really? The ideal version of yourself is just the most authentic version of yourself. And how do you become the most authentic version of yourself? You become the most authentic version of yourself by getting rid of all of the layers of conditioning and masks and all this stuff you've been wearing all this time. So if this is something that you feel like you might be interested in, go ahead, comment below, comment breakthrough below, and I'm going to reach out to you, or someone from my team is going to reach out to you, and we'll just chat real quick for 15 minutes and we'll see if we can help. And if it's something that I can do to help you out, great. I'll just share with you what that might look like, the ins and outs and all that fun stuff. And if not, no big deal. We can part ways as friends. You can still enjoy the group and all the free stuff that we have here. But if this is something that you'd be interested in getting some personal one-on-one support from me with, we're going to do a deep dive, clear all the conditioning together, help you create your life on purpose from the top down, and then give you the step-by-step roadmap to make it real and make it last. If that's something that you're into, go ahead and comment breakthrough below. And I really look forward to serving you. So hope this was helpful for you guys. And if I see you again soon on the breakthrough, really looking forward to chatting with you. If I'm not going to see you then, what I like to find out is comment, what was the biggest thing that you got from today? Maybe it's not the right time for you right now, but I want to comment, what was the biggest thing that you got from this today? And how can you use this moving forward? What are you committed to moving forward? So what's the biggest thing you got from this today? And what are you committed to moving forward from now on? So that's it for now. I'd love to chat with you. If you're interested in this or you want to find out more information, comment breakthrough and I'll reach out to you. And until then, this is Jared with Self Mastery for Men. It was great having you all here, and I'll see you soon. So take care, guys. See you soon.